Welcome everyone to the first show of the Women Who Lead series. This is our inaugural episode of what I hope to be one of many more. And I want to use the word Zoom because we are on Zoom as a metaphor, because I want the world to zoom in on more women leaders. Today's series, which I call the Trailblazers, captures the essence of who a trailblazer is. The women on the panel are extraordinary leaders who have set the trail in many ways and play an important role in the real estate and housing ecosystem. For those who don't know me, my name is Teresa Palacios Smith, and I'm Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for HSF Affiliates and for Home Services of America. I've been wanting to do a series like this for so many years, and it's been a passion project, and I'm so excited that we're finally premiering it today. My family is originally from Colombia, South America, and when we get together with family and friends, we always ask when they come over to our house, ¿Quieres un cafecito? Would you like a coffee? So today, I want you to join me con un cafecito with three influential women who've inspired me in more ways than I can ever say, and I know they're going to inspire you as well. So let's get started. First, I want to introduce Tiffany Curry, who is our newest broker of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Curry and Company Realtors in Houston, Texas. Tiffany is a trailblazer in many ways, and I'm going to let her share her story with you. But she is so important to me because she is the first. This year, she became the first 100% African-American owned owner of a Berkshire Hathaway Home Services real estate franchise. And I hope that will not be news one day, that it'll be normalcy. And I know, Tiffany, that you have the very power to help us with that mission. Next is Erica Courtney, and I sit on the National Leadership Diversity and Inclusion Council for NAWRB with Erica. She is an 18-year U.S. Army vet and CEO of 2020 Vet. She is the first to do so many things in her role in the military and beyond. So I'm going to also let her talk about her experiences with you. And last but not least, I have Desiree Patno. I still remember the very first time I met Desiree, and I immediately fell in love with her passion, her determination for advancing women and minorities. She is the CEO of NAWRB and chairwoman of NDLIC, which we'll also talk about in a minute, and runs several initiatives to empower women. So welcome all of you. Thank you for being the catalyst for me to get this show off the ground. It's an honor of knowing you, and I get so much from our relationship, and I wanted the world to also learn about you and how you impact women every day. So let's get started. I'm going to start with Tiffany, I want you to tell us a little bit more about how you got started in real estate and your background and becoming the first, women owner of a Berkshire Hathaway Home Services franchise.
Well, first off, thank you so much, Teresa, for putting this on. I think this is an amazing opportunity for us all, and I think it's so inspiring for everyone that's going to get to watch, because I'm so inspired just by the three of you ladies. This is an honor for me to be here with you guys, because this is just, you all have such dynamic stories, and so this is a really great treat for me just to be here. So I personally am a native Houstonian. And I was, real estate was a game of chance for me. It's not an industry that I intended to be in. I intended to be in the corporate background, or either in law. So law was going to be my thing, but I was going to go corporate with that. So I was in class one day in college when I was getting my second degree, and one of my classmates, she just said she was going to get her real estate license. So I was like, oh, I want to do that too. Let's do that. I want to learn investments and community development, those kinds of things, especially from what avenue I thought I was going to take. Well, long story short, she never did, and I did. I went online, bought these books, and before you know it, I had a real estate license, right? An inactive real estate license, and not really knowing what to do with it. And so that was my first experience in learning the world of real estate. And coming into real estate, I was supposed to try it 6 months before going into law school. And it's been over 14, almost 14 years, and that has never happened. But what was so amazing in the journey, and I do like to take the time to just kind of spell this out and recognize this, because a lot of people want to know my story and how things came to fruition as how they are. You know, when I came into real estate, you know, pretty much everyone, when I went into Prudential, you know, everybody was seasoned. Everyone had had 2 or 3 or 4 careers before, right? They had this amazing database, and, you know, the market had crashed and they were surviving. For me, I didn't have that. Everybody that I knew that I just came out of school with, they were actually going back into school for another degree, because the market had crashed and they couldn't get jobs in their field to pay them what they would normally get paid. So I ended up reaching out to HAR, actually our local association, sent something that said, as a young professional, would you be entertained by coming to something for young professionals? And I said yes. And I will tell you, that's how I'm in this industry today. You know, I connected through YPN, that's the Young Professionals Network, and then I ended up going through NAR's YPN, and a couple years later, I ended up going through Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Rethink Council, which is their version of YPN. And I will tell you, because it was so ironic, and I'll leave you with this little story. You know, Prudential had left our market, you know, so I ended up going to a luxury firm and learning luxury real estate, and that was amazing, an amazing experience. And it was, turns out, a detour that I needed to take. But then when Berkshire Hathaway actually came back into this market through another brokerage, I just kind of watched it from a distance. And then all of a sudden on Inman, I get this alert that says Warren Buffett's fresh new brand is targeting millennials, right? And so I see this and their idea to form this Rethink Council, and I'm like, I want to be a part of that, right? And they had an age ceiling cap on it. So originally, I think it was 35 and under. And so I was like, I got to get back over there before I turn 35, right? So I can try to get on that Rethink Council. And as luck would have it, there was a threshold for the Rethink Council, and I just missed that ceiling, like probably about $2,500, right? And it's like life. It's like a game of chance. So something said, just go and look at the requirements, like when they sent the blast out for that next year. And I go in and look, and guys, I tell you, the threshold had been lowered just a smidge. And guess what? I qualified. And so I submitted my application, and I waited until they sifted through all these different people. And then one day I got that email that says that I was a part of the Rethink Council, and my world has been forever different ever since then.
Oh, I love that story. And just to clarify, because I know people need to know, it was Prudential Real Estate that was part of the market, right? And Berkshire Hathaway Home Services that was opening its operations there. So I love that. I love that story, and how, you know, through these different resources, you were able to look into the future and grow from it. And I know, Erica, that is something that you also share. There's so many paths and so many things that you have done. And I just want everyone to know about how you got started in the military, in such a male dominant, you know, division in the Army, and just all of that entails. How did you do that? How did you stay in, and how did you become such a leader within that industry? It's so exciting.
Well, it's a journey. So, you know, you don't figure it out overnight. Young pup, grew up in Huntington Beach. I was very athletic, very good runner. Went to college right out of high school and was bored out of my mind. So decided to join the Army, went in as military police. And, you know, my running skills and athletic prowess, you know, took me far pretty early. I can keep up with the men and often beat them, which was kind of shocking to them. So after 3.5 years, decided if I'm going to stay in the military, I want to be an officer, which required me to finish college. So they let me out. Paid for the remaining 3 years of school, graduated #1 in my class as the battalion commander, and chose aviation as my branch. And at the time, they had just opened it up to the Aero Scout mission, which was, again, the last airframe to allow women to fly in any service. And I immediately looked into what they did, which was a lot of going forward, scouting, reporting information so people can make good decisions in the rear. And I was like, scout through and through, sign me up, love it. And so, you know, throughout my journey, of course, there was a lot of conscious and unconscious bias when I was new in a very male-dominated, less than 1% field. But again, I learned early that that's their problem, not my problem. I'm here to do a job, and I'm here to keep you safe, and I'm here to keep you trained. So that carried me far in life. I went to some of the most deployable units, 10th Mountain Division, was a paratrooper at the 82nd, first woman to graduate the Advanced Cavalry Armor School, which at the time armor was closed to women, but I fought and got in. And then I ended up having 2 baby boys, and it just became a little too much. I realized that, you know, maybe I am not immortal, decided to get out, worked corporate, didn't like it, and then decided to start my own business because as a senior staff officer, I did everything logistics, contracts, and budget. So I was very used to dealing with buyers, and now I was teaching people how to get to the person I used to be. And then in 2005, decided to get out after multiple deployments, and basically, you know, had a 7-year transition where, you know, we can talk about this later, but having to kind of figure out who I was on the outside after leaving the military. And I always owned my femininity, but it took me years to kind of figure out how to own vulnerability, because you have to lose that and you have to be tough and you can't give off signals. So it inspired me to help other veterans, eventually more women veterans, to tell their story and to recognize the journey we have to go through that's different than our male counterparts, which is learning what society thinks feminine is. And anyway, I joined in 2013 again as a reservist, taught cadets because they had just lifted the law for women to serve in all combat roles. One thing led to another. I was at the Pentagon, which I'm at now on the Joint Staff, ending up working on a United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, which is women, peace, and security. 82 nations have a plan, but they didn't go as far as what we call an implementation and strategy. And we are the first nation, actually it was signed last week, to have a national policy that includes USAID, Department of Homeland Security.
And we're announcing it here, right?
And Department of State and DOD, who all have equities in women, peace, and security, which essentially means that we're implementing a gender perspective in all of our training, all of our policy, everything that we do. We're looking at how do we interact with local populace? How do we get women to the table, at least 1/3, to really make sure that peace treaties last 3 times as long, to make sure that we can stabilize communities quicker, to make sure we're looking internally at our own forces. So I've been really proud to be part of that. Also, I'm a commissioner for California representing 20 million women and girls. So through my journey, I've learned to recognize that, you know, I was afraid to work with women when I got out, but over time, I have embraced it. Working with strong, confident women, we literally can change the world, and I really believe that. And when we come together, it's extremely powerful, and that drives me to continue to do what I do every day. So thanks for having me.
Such inspirational. I mean, can you see this? Wow, it's just so amazing. I love it. And Desiree, I know that you are also an accomplished woman, and you've done so much to help. I mean, we've got so many initiatives that we work on, and I know you've done so many on your own. So tell us. And I love this. I love the sharing. I just want y'all to know I'm just so honored. This is so exciting for me. Desiree, tell us a little bit about how you got started and everything you're doing, because I love it.
Well, thank you, Teresa. Again, echo Tiffany. Thank you for having us on this and being the inaugural, you know, Women Who Lead. It's been a passion of mine for years, and it's a tough act to follow with Erica. I mean, yes, I am her cheerleader beyond cheerleading, because it's just so powerful to integrate the public and the government and the integration that goes with it, the understanding of it. So thank you, Erica. And so my story is a little different. I grew up in Ventura County. I'm a native Californian. I currently reside in Irvine for the last 27 years. And my background is that no is never in my vocabulary. So when I was young, no is never in my vocabulary. So as far as having 2 brothers and 4 boys, it was never about having an issue about women. And so I was like, okay, I'll just do whatever. I fix the cars, I fly the airplanes, I do the, the integration of construction, you name it. Is if I didn't know how to do it, I figured out how to do it and became good at it. And so as I grew up, I became if I didn't like something, I excelled at it, I got out of it, and I said, okay, we'll do something else. And so what happened is I was the only girl that played water polo in 1971. It's now Olympic sport. And so I played with all guys. You can imagine water polo is a very physical sport. And so all the feely touchy that goes underneath, you touch me, okay, great. So moving forward is that I came into my own that I'm like, okay, real estate. Oh my gosh, I could be an IT person and do IT person. I was IT good and do just nothing but technology. And it was so boring for me because it was behind the scenes. You didn't get to see the people and be who the people. So real estate, I saw these beautiful women driving these fancy cars and fancy jewelry and got to go talk in front of everyone. I said, I want to be like them. So I gave up this job in corporate America, and they said, you're going to go be a used car salesman and be in real estate. And it was really degrading on how they put me down time and time again, and how, you're wasting your time and wasting your career. I would never have chosen a different path right now based on the fact that I get to see so much and get to see life. And it led me to where I'm now, to where not only am I consulting, advising, and shaping social impact, but the career path that I've taken on selling real estate, owning my own company, being involved in real estate for the past 30 years, it's led me to a position now that the experiences I had as a child, the experiences of being one of the number of agricultural communities in the United States, Ventura County. Fun fact, $652 million is sold as strawberries every year. Could you imagine $652 million of strawberries? So
And a lot of Latinos do that work.
That's very true in Ventura County. And so what happened is that I was able to have a visionary of what's going down, how things are going. And now if you think about the pandemic, the civil unrest, the environment, how the integration of the different industries. And so Energy became wealth is by having options. And by integrating real estate and all the things that go around it, it's going to keep everyone to be sustainable, have a better quality of life. Think about our impact. And so that's really about who I become is that to leverage the resources to help us be better at who we are, what we are, and to have a seat at the table, no matter for a woman, minority, LBG, it doesn't matter, because we all have a voice and we need to hear that voice. So storytelling, the narrative is what I'm all about. So thank you very much again for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
And absolutely. And you brought up something that I think, that it's all on everyone's mind. And that is two things, right? How do we lead? And I know, Tiffany and the business you're in, and Eric, we've talked about this, Desiree, because we've had to cancel conferences. We've had to change everything that we do the last 3 months. And we were together March, less than 3 months ago. Tiffany and I were together at the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services conference, Live It, in Nashville, Tennessee, which we went on and held because Nashville had been hit by a hurricane and by a tornado. And so we wanted to be there and support the city. And since then, we came back to, what's happened in the country with COVID. And so and I know, Erica, you have a specific story about COVID because you actually got it. So let's talk about that. How do we lead? How do we, shelter in place? What has happened, for us as women? Because I personally feel like I'm working more hours than I ever have. I still have my family responsibilities. A lot of mothers and women are dealing with that, along with working and coordinating and sheltering and all that. So, and I know our real estate industry is going to be affected a little bit because people are rethinking, right? How is a home going to be set up? Is the future going to be the same for where we live? Tiffany, I'm going to start off with you, and then Desiree, and then Erica, so we can kind of, what are your thoughts? Tell us what has been happening? What are your leadership?
Well, I think this is a time that I feel like this is a time that leaders are going to shine, because an effective leader is always going to do the right thing for the team or for the organization that they're leading. And it's an interesting time because you still have to make business decisions, even though we're going through a pandemic. And, for me as a broker owner, I have agents. And so my priority in addition to the company, are those agents. And so it's a different shift because you have people who are going through all types of chaos behind the scenes, right? So like, even though they're in real estate, they're self-employed, right? So they wake up unemployed every day. But also their spouse is at home. So you're starting to see some people who are worried about losing their jobs or getting furloughed, right? That have the regular 9-to-5s, that's their security blankets. And so in this changing time, what we're doing is we're staying connected. You have to stay connected and in tune with people. So, it's crazy, but like with my agents, in addition to the trainings and things like that, we realized they needed more hands-on, you know what I mean? And so now I find myself having weekly conversations with 8 individual agents and just seeing how they are doing, checking in and saying, how can we help? Because I think that's really important. We have some people that are pretty much aloof and on their own, and they really don't want to be bothered, and that's fine. But then you do have some of those who you do need to put hands on. You do need to have a little extra hand holding and have these conversations with, because it's a different time. Leading in any time is a challenge, because anytime you are working with other people, there's so many dynamics to it. There's so many things that are going on behind the scenes with those people individually. So I think even though we are in a pandemic, I think for us here in real estate, it's still been very smooth. Our biggest thing is that what we have learned and what we've educated the agents on is relationships. This is a time to be talking to people. This is a time people need to be talked to, because people are afraid. They're scared. They don't have any idea when this is going to be over. They don't know if this is going to impact them. And I mean, even for like with Erica, we have not had it here yet with any of our agents, knock on wood, but they are uncertain if they're going to catch the COVID, or if somebody that they care about, or their parents or their family, or people that in their family that are high risk. So you have all these underlying things that are going on. And I think right now, this is a time for us to be strong and efficient, and insightful. So like for me, with my company in general, we're paying very close attention to people. We're paying very close attention to the company, because this is also a time where we're seeing, daily in Texas, yesterday we had a spike, our highest spike ever. 5,000 new cases of COVID were exposed yesterday in the state of Texas. That's a huge number. And, so we have a lot of businesses that have been in business for a long time, and we're seeing them go under. They're already saying, they're not going to recover past COVID-19. A lot of them are shutting their doors now. So, for me and from my standpoint, as a leader, my job is simple. I have to take care of the people that we have, and I have to make sure that I take care of the company, because that's our security blanket. And so in these changing times, I think we have to be efficient and we have to be effective. And the most important thing is we have to sustain. That's the big word I would say for today, is sustainability, because that's a big deal right now, because a lot of people and a lot of companies are not going to make it past this. And so that's going to be the main thing, is to be able to be here when this is all over.
And Tiffany, you lead with a heart, which I think is something that all of us do, right? It's not just about employees. It's people that we love, we care about. We take their personal success, to a whole different level. And Desiree, that's something you talk about, that on ROI, it's leading with a heart. And so tell me about how you've been able to, having to decide, do I hold a conference that I have held every year? Do I move forward? In California, you guys had a really difficult time as well. So tell me about your experiences.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Here in California, we also have a huge spike like you are in Texas, Tiffany. We have a very hands-on approach. We had the whole state was all masked. Then it became certain people were actually being affected really bad by, no, I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm going to go to the health inspector's home and threaten her. And she actually resigned immediately, because the powers of being very assertive that we're not going to do something. So, in California, we're very outspoken, very strong-willed thinkers. And so you've got a lot of people that are being their own dynamic. So I echo Tiffany's comments about being sustainable, but I also think it's very important as leaders that we really need to listen. We hear, we hear, we see money being thrown out there to support, let's say, D&I. We see that, you know, I'm going to do something. Yet at the same time, we don't see action. You know, that's one of the reasons we see that's going on right now. And so you can throw money out there, you can throw advertising out there, but real sustainability has to come from action, has to come follow through. And if you take a very snapshot of the quality of life, everyone's quality of life has been affected, good, bad, and different. And if we don't address the entire employees, like for Tiffany, from the narrative, because if we don't have good, non-politically charged, because all of us are our own DNA, all of us have our own beliefs. There's no way within your internal families, with your internal companies, within your internal sphere of influence of your friends, are you all going to agree on every subject? So
Right.
to keep that harmony, to keep that attentiveness, that we're so quick to react. We want to see the news before the news even happens. So we want to create our own news, right? Like the old James Bond movie that I'm going to produce the news and I'm going to write the news before the news even happens. So with that being said, having a good narrative, having a good storytelling, making sure that you mentally take care and prepare to handle that it's okay to be verbally sharp for a moment, but then come back and realize, okay, maybe I shouldn't have done it. Maybe I could handle it differently. I think that's a quality of a leader, to accept responsibility, to laugh it off and not be like, okay, well, I blew that because I'm not perfect. It's not about perfection anymore. It's really about understanding the cause that's going on. And so if you look at COVID is just a entity of a virus that has been out there in different forms. So it's going to continue, whether we get a cure or not. We're going to have other ones that are get, you know, the old adage is that a germ gets stronger and it continues. So as leaders, we have to prepare. This could become a new way. It's an opportunity to pounce on it. You know, the old adage is there's 60% of the jobs out there are not even created right now that are going to be future. So if you went to school, you know, we have all these interns and colleges, so all these people have student debt and they're going into real estate. And how do I keep my house? What are we going to do about the landlords that have properties? And yet we're giving free rent to the tenants, but they don't have to pay. Yet I, as a landlord, what am I going to do? Because now I don't have my home, my business anymore, because it's my passive income. So we have a very different time, right?
Yeah, so true. It really is. How do we manage, you know, all the situations and all the opportunities that they're supposed to help, but in the long run, they also can hinder, you know?
Yeah. So we have to have, so one of the things that I love what I've turned into in the sense of the organization and the narrative is if you had asked me 10 years ago, I'd be doing this. It wasn't in my cards. And so now I want to hear your stress points. I want to hear the bad, the good, and the ugly, because we can't help you help yourself if we don't understand what's happening in Erica's world at the Pentagon in DC, what's happening to you in Colombia, let's say, just not only the United States. If we travel around the industries in the world as collectively whole, hopefully we can minimize the mistakes. And I like to end with the adage that as a mother, we're always trying to be better our children for the future. And if you think our future now is so going to be so different, not just from COVID, civil unrest, we're talking about the generational of the industrial revolution, of technology. We're talking about how we cope with society. It's going to be so much different. So we as leaders have to understand, by listening, by defining what those options can be, and allowing us to hear and be brought to the table on what's being happened. Because if we don't bring it to the table and listen to your side of you and your side of you, then we're not going to understand what you really feel, because we're too afraid of being pounced on or what people are going to say if we really speak the truth of how we really feel.
And I love that, because I think that's so true. Listening and being able to hear everyone.
Retaliation, repercussion.
I think a lot of that is so needed. Erica, you personally contracted COVID and had to, and there are some effects of it. So it's a personal thing for you. So tell us about that experience and how have you dealt with the role that you had, because you were under, a ground doing research and work, for a cause, and then eventually I think led to what happened to you. So share with that. Share us that.
Sure. So I was working on the COVID crisis response team in the Pentagon. So every inquiry that came from the executive to the legislative to the chairman to the SecDef, we were responsible for figuring out the answers. So I was there at the really beginning where we were pushing out equipment and people and standing up hospitals. There was a lot going on. So I was very third person operationally focused on COVID. And we were part of a small group sampling to get a check because there was barely any tests at the time. And I got the call the next day that I was positive for COVID, which it took me a second to kind of process it.
Wow.
Like, all right, I had my temperature checked 4 times every time I walk in and out of this place. I don't have any symptoms. Really? So pack your stuff, go away, and go to quarantine for 2 weeks. So I took that time as I normally do. And as Desiree says, I do. So I'm like, hey, I'm a reservist activated, and you guys just activated a lot of National Guard and reservists. You may want to pay attention because when they come off orders, they too can get sick and they should be covered. And I also recognize that the military is fantastic at teaching us to lead people from, all over this country, different backgrounds, different sexual orientations, gender, socioeconomic, you name it. And we are very flexible. So in my own world, in my own business, I pivoted from doing a lot of logistics and freight management to working with other women business owners that I've known for a decade who, Arbil, they manufacture safety equipment for 75 years, and IPAC, they're packagers and marketers. So the safety kit was born. So we offer basically, because at the time I was not wearing a mask, I wasn't, protected. Sure, we had some hand sanitizer, but I wonder, could I have been protected? And now I'm part of a big UCSF study, which they take my blood and every other kind of sample to be part of the longer term solution to understand it. But the good thing is thanks to my connections here, ladies, now I'm a preferred alliance member within the Berkshire Hathaway family, which means that, people around the globe will have access to purchase these kits, which are, state of the art, very safety conscious antimicrobial masks, and gloves and hand sanitizers and wipes. So there's like a day kit, there's a 2x2, and then there's a deluxe kit with 3 masks, gloves, and sanitizer. So hopefully when all of these real estate people start going back to work, they can order something for their customers and keep their employees safe. Because as the ladies were talking about, leadership's all about knowing your people. And with everything going on in the globe and our own country in terms of women suffering from abuse and child abuse is going on, and access to healthcare, lack of access to healthcare in terms of birth control, even condoms, there's a shortage. So there's a lot going on that we really need to understand with people and those relationships as they discussed, because you're not going to be a very effective employee or friend or daughter or mother if you really aren't addressing some of these things and understanding your people. So you can help them through it. So.
And I couldn't agree with you more. And I think the fact that this led to an opportunity because you saw a need. And, when you were talking about this, remember there was a shortage even of gloves and of masks, so that was, in effect, why a lot of people did not have the resources available to them. You can even buy the necessary items at the stores. I know we all do our own branding and social media, and we're going to do a couple more questions if you can just do about a minute, and then we'll, wrap up, because I think it's important for people to understand, how social media branding, crisis management, all of that plays an important role in today and what we're doing. And what do you guys share? Anybody wants to jump in on that? I know Desiree, you talked about it as well, and how important that is for us to have somebody helping us, or to do it, or to work with it, so that we're positive the entire time. Because again, one mistake can really tarnish your reputation.
I'd like to jump in. Thank you, Teresa. Here at NRB, we started about 5 years ago, a hashtag called Positive NRB, where for years we've heard the negativity of news. And, it was always about, what's breaking news, because negative news sells, not positive news, and it became just seeing the animal. So one of the things that I'd like to really highlight, and I want to give full credit to Erica, she says, take the time to go on LinkedIn and do a recommendation. If you go into LinkedIn and do a recommendation of a person that you're working with that you love, that's bringing it out in the open that you are endorsing that person to making sure that they understand the connectivity. Because obviously LinkedIn is the biggest platform that's out there because there's so many ways of communicating with other. The other thing is connectivity is that if you see something that you believe in, hashtag that person or link them together in some capacity and put that out there. But the data overload is so high right now with 90% of the data being transferred every year in the world. And that information is that by having us women who lead that are really inspiring, that you believe the missions are aligned and connecting their source of what they're doing will make that big difference. So narrative storytelling is huge in the social media space.
Tiffany, because I know you do quite a bit. And
So I do quite a bit of social media. And so I think the thing for me with social media is we've always tried to have a good balance of personal versus business, because if it's too much of business, people are just going to shy away from it. They're not going to look at it much. So my sister does handle a lot of our social media for our company, and that's worked really well. And basically what we've done is we've built the focus around real estate and our agents. We've done that a huge amount because a lot of times in a lot of companies, you know, it's all about the company. It's not about the agents. And so it just gives them a different sense of pride. And we see that they work so much harder for us and for themselves when they feel like they're getting that recognition. And so, you know, as you mentioned, I do have a really good social media following. And so our agents, they automatically benefit from that. And so that's been interesting. But I think for us we've used and leveraged social media mainly to control the narrative in our marketplace, because right now people are wondering, is now a good time to sell my house? Is now a good time to buy my house? It's COVID-19 is happening. Nobody's moving. Well, that's not true. Like our people are the busiest that they have been since they've been here, since the first of the year. So this month we have more pending sales for this month than any other month since we've been up, and that's with adjustments. So that's a big deal. But it's not effective unless you let people know that. So it's great that it's happening, but when we're putting that out on the social media and in the outlets, it's encouraging the agents, because they are seeing themselves, to take those images and that data and share it on their network with their people. And so now people are calling them and saying, oh, hey, I see you're selling all these houses. Like, are people really doing that right now? People are moving. And they're like, yeah, you know, now's a great time to move. If you don't, you know, and prices are even thinking, you know, in our area, they're thinking that prices will go up towards the end of the summer. And so that's huge. And so just kind of putting that feel out there and using social media as leverage has really benefited us.
And as a positive versus, you know, and I always tell, you know, all of our network agents and all the people that we work with, even my sisters, you know, keep everything positive. Don't make opinions. Don't do anything that will alienate, you know, because there's always you know, people that are too for, it doesn't matter. You know, it's important that you always make sure that you stay positive and always with the heart, right? That's how I always talk about social media and branding and all that. That's so important. And Erica, I don't want to leave you out if you have comments too as well. You're good. All right. So one thing that I do want to, before we wrap up, is I know that we all have scenarios where we personally have had challenges as women. You know, is there anything you want to share? Like, what has been the biggest challenge that you have? Erica, you mentioned one thing that touched me too, because it's happened to me before. You were a mother and you had to decide whether you leave the military or stay in, because you had 2 small children, and that would affect the course of your life, the path that you would take. Not all men do that. It's not always something that men in general have to even worry about. And I say that because it is so true, you know, in general. And again, I just want to make sure that that is voiced. Anything else? Because I know you had challenges in the military you had to come up with, and Desiree and Tiffany as well. You know, what are some of the obstacles that we can share that we face, and how did we overcome them so we can send that to another women of generation that may be also feeling the same?
I can jump in. I would just say what's really important is integrity and authenticity. if you try to behave in a way that you think leadership should look like, or you try to act like, you know, in my case, the men that, you know, I was charged to lead, they will eat you alive. So that may take a while as a woman. I mean, in your 20s, you're sort of figuring out who you are. In your 30s, you're really honing it in. And in your 40s, you're hopefully willing to give back, because you know who you are and you want the women behind you to learn those lessons that just be yourself. Don't try to be like somebody else. And that leadership will have to be flexible based on different groups. One style, one size fits all isn't going to work for something over here. So, you know, be willing to listen to people. That got me very far. People who've been around, I just shut up, listen, let them mentor me. And now I have the privilege of being able to do that. So just be authentic and never lose your integrity.
Great advice. I love that. I love it. Tiffany or Desiree?
Do you want to have, I'll jump in. I think one of the biggest things, takeaways that I'll always leave women with is that, you know, as a woman in business and as women in business, we still have to treat one another how we want to be treated. And I think that is so important because a lot of times, oftentimes, women have much more respect for men than they do women in leadership. And that's a big caveat that we have to work to get past, because oftentimes, you know, we want things to be fair. We want an equal playing field, but we don't know how to conduct ourselves in the equal playing field, you know, and that's a big thing. And that I leave that because I know that there's so many women, especially in my industry, as far as real estate, you know, there are more women in real estate than men, but when you look at leadership, and I don't care if it's within companies, if it's within volunteer leadership, it's a big disparaging gap once you get to that top. It's you know, it's a very flip-sided coin. And so what I will say is, in order for that to change and for us to evolve as women, we have to be receptive and appreciative of one another. We have to listen more. We have to recognize our differences and those hurdles that prevent us from respecting a woman in the same capacity that we respect a man. And so I think that's something that we have to stop and think. And that's all of us. That's not just some of us. That's all of us that have to stop and reevaluate like our mentality. And it's not that we're doing something wrong, even though it is not right. It's just that that's become a norm. That's what we're used to. We're not used to seeing people or people of our same gender in certain roles. And so we don't know how to react to it. So I think that's the big takeaway that I would leave, that women going forward, in order for not just business to be more successful, but the world to evolve at a different point. You know, even in the United States of America, we've never had a woman president. And you can't tell me in all these years and all this lifetime, there's never been a qualified woman to be president, whether it was in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, or whenever. You know, that's something that we really have to stop and think about.
And it's very wise words. And I think, you know, we've talked about this before, that sometimes women, we're our worst enemies with each other. We don't always, you know, promote each other or, you know, hold each other up because we feel some sort of, you know, I don't know, that's going to make me less competent. So I love that. And I love that you shared that, because I think women need to understand that we all need to support each other and lift each other up, right? And Desiree, you do that so well. And I do want you to touch on one thing, because I really think it's very important. You do a beautiful magazine and a report every year that provides, you know, all of us with information of what's happening in the different industries where women are making an impact. Just touch on that before we leave, because I think that's really important as well.
Thank you. And it's really amazing that Tiffany and what you hit on, Teresa, is about the women not supporting other women. That is really why, you know, when I was a fun fact real quick is that when I was young, I didn't have any girlfriends. They were all guys. I got along with the guys exceptionally well. The guys accepted me. I was a tomboy. I did everything. That's why I was not even a thought process of being not accepted as a woman. And yet here I'm trying to help combat the very issue that women are the worst enemies to other women, that we're not supporting each other, we're not leveraging each other, we're not helping each other. And so when you think about the Women Housing Ecosystem report that we came out with 5 years ago with the gender lens, we had to talk about the whole macro system. We had to talk about each of the industries. We had to put, before we could put the lens on it, right? So whether we were talking about just women as a society within it, whether we were talking the veterans, or thank you very much, Erica, and several others, I found myself trying to leverage and resource that out. That it was like, okay, how are we going to get better if we're not supporting each other? We're not being combative of each other, especially whether it be real estate, whether it be tech or whatever, that we're saying, hey, thank you. Because one of the fears that we're so worried about that if there's only 2 women in the room and there's 50 guys in the room, are we going to be able to speak up and not be retaliated that we're going to lose our position? So women weren't supporting other women. So hence the Quality of Life magazine, our magazine that's been out for 9 years now. It's the NRB magazine. It's internationally read. It's in 65 different countries right now. It's both digitally and print. And we dedicated the last issue to the entire COVID piece about the quality of life, how it's impacted it. So we put together all the different facets of whether it be real estate, government, profile, She Centerfolds, you name it, to really amplify who and what we are as a narrative of storytelling. Because if you can't bring it together and we can't amplify what Tiffany said, Erica said, you said, what those differences are, then we're not going to be able to help each other help ourselves, right? So to amplify that, and then also with the women impacting it, with the housing report, we have 6 volumes. We have the whole entire DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. We have an entire volume on real estate. So you talk about residential, commercial, industrial, retail. You talk about the entire, from STEM, we talk about all the different classifications. That think about patents, where you have, when's the last time you went into your home and you picked up a device and it was built for a woman's hand who's smaller than versus a man? Because there's no tech designers that are women. They're all men. Right? And I'm big, so I've got big hands. I'm 6 foot tall, so I was okay.
You're different, right?
Right. So, but if you deal with the business ownership, we go all the way from poverty and homelessness all the way to the family offices, which is $100 million and above. So we span the entire spectrum of economic footprint. Then we deal in the aging population. How many of us have actually related to the aging population before COVID, or even thought about it in a big way, right? And we started that 5 years ago. So the idea is that when you talk about R&D, research and development, how we can share and leverage, women will become more accepted if you actually say, well, here's the data, here's the results, this is why. And they go, oh, okay, so maybe being a competitor is actually an advantage versus, because it pushes you, it makes you stronger, but then you leverage and help each other. You can be better for each of our children, our kids' environment. Because if we're taking care of the children, we're taking care of the homeschooling, we're doing all the business opportunities, and we're the quarterback, we have to be supportive. So thank you very much for that, for the magazine and for the WEAR report. They are available digitally. They're also available in print, and the plug to be part of that information.
That's great. Thank you so much. It's a beautiful report. It's great information, and I always want to share, the data. There you go. I love it. Beautiful. And the contrast between the Empire State the area being lit versus unlit.
Right. So halfway down, here, halfway this line, you have what this is over here before Times Square, and then over here is what the day after. If we put things in perspective, we went from being completely fine to the next day saying you can't watch something.
Completely dark. I totally love
this
it.
This is 150 shades of graphic integration to make that.
It's beautiful.
Thank
and
you.
Erica, let me have you wrap it up, baby. Any other final comments with you, Erica? You're good. So I want to thank, first of all of you, because I want to just, before we get any final comments, any last words of tidbits, anybody just pipe in, whatever you think. Otherwise, we will wrap it up, because I know we've taken enough time, and we want to make sure people watch the show and love it. Like I've just so enjoyed it. Tiffany, any remarks, any quotes, anything that you want to say? as we
Yeah,
wrap?
it's a quote that, especially because of the times that we're in, it's one of my most top 3 favorite quotes, and I use it often. It's a Babe Ruth quote that it's hard to be the person that never gives up. And I think right now is the time to know that it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what are you doing, or how far back you feel like you are. Even if you feel like this COVID-19 virus is taking you back in any type of way, don't give up. Just keep pushing. I mean, that's the biggest thing that I can leave people with. The story of the hare and the tortoise has always been one of my favorites as well, because, slow and steady wins the race. I've always been taught that. And, life is it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So take your time, find your place, and just keep pushing forward.
And it never ends until it ends, right? I love it.
So I'd like to add, do a shameless plug about the NDLC 10 Women Leadership Principles. This is a Women Who Leads and series. And the 10 Women Leadership Principles, I really believe could be substituted for no matter what. You could take the word woman out there and put any different place in that. And each one of those, and Erica, you did the Trailblazer, and Teresa, you did Keep Achieving or Believe, and then I did Listen. And the idea is that those 10 principles, I believe that if we all took a principle and took it to the next level, then we as a society would be better, because they were curated out of 10 different industries, different personalities, and different expertise. And that is what I believe is something that we as a society have to not reinvent the wheel, but leverage the information and experiences and journeys of everyone else. So thank you very much for this opportunity, Teresa.
Thank you, Desiree. Erica, any final comments? I know you've got in your heart.
Just be kind. There's too much anger out there right now, and meanness and sensitivities over people saying the wrong thing that offends someone, or politics. And, just be aware of all of that coming at us, and really just try to stay focused on keeping you and the people around you and, happy, and do what you can, whether it's in your community or your state or the nation, but do something for others, because people are suffering. And I feel blessed and privileged that I have food and I have a roof over my head, and I am able to do the things that I get to do. So, this is a time where we need people who are in these positions to just get out and be part of the solution and quit complaining. Just do.
So what a beautiful way to wrap up today. Thank you. I wanted to make sure that you are all aware. Desiree mentioned the NDLIC Council. We created 10 Women Leadership Principles, and the number one principle, the first one, and I'll share it on our Facebook page, was the principle of acknowledging trailblazers. And I know, Erica, you were the first principal that spoke on that. Know and learn from the women who came before you. We are all standing on the shoulders of giants. These are the giants that we're all standing on. And I want to thank Tiffany, Erica, and Desiree for having the courage and determination to be trailblazers. Please make sure you comment, like our page, and join me on July 22nd in 2 weeks from today during Women Crush Wednesdays right here on this channel, when we zoom in on the global women of luxury, featuring Mei Chang, editor-in-chief of Mansion Magazine, Dunya Fadi, COO of BHHS Golf Properties in Dubai, and Stephanie Newlands, senior partner and broker of BHHS Toronto Realty. And girls, ladies, thank you so much. Un cafecito, right? Cheering you on. Thank you for watching the show. And please remember to always bring other women up the ladder as you climb to the top. Thanks again, and see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye, guys.